In our interconnected world, peace is a fragile tapestry, woven from diplomacy, treaties, and mutual understanding. But what happens when a single miscalculation threatens to unravel it all? Tonight, we peer into the abyss of what could be. We'll examine the world's most dangerous flashpoints, geopolitical tripwires that could trigger a conflict on a scale not seen in generations. These are the red lines boundaries that, if crossed, could plunge us into the unthinkable. A third world war. From Europe's alliances to Asia's contested waters, the world is holding its breath. We'll break down each scenario, exploring the history, the players, and the chain reactions that could follow. Because in this era of global uncertainty, vigilance is our greatest asset. At the heart of the Western world lies Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, a single sentence that has shaped the security architecture of Europe and North America for over 70 years. Article 5 declares that an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all, binding 31 nations together in a promise of mutual defense. This collective defense principle, forged in the aftermath of World War II, was designed to deter Soviet aggression and prevent the horrors of another global conflict. For decades, it has underpinned European security, acting as a shield against external threats and a reassurance to nations on the alliance's frontier. Article 5 has only been invoked once, after the September 11th attacks in the United States, demonstrating the alliance's solidarity in the face of unprecedented terror. Yet today, as war returns to Europe's doorstep, the principle faces its greatest test since the Cold War. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has brought large-scale conflict alarmingly close to NATO's borders. The world has watched as missiles and drones have strayed into alliance territory, raising fears that a single misstep could trigger a wider war. Each incident is a nerve-wracking test of NATO's resolve. Leaders must weigh every response carefully, knowing that a single strike on a NATO member could force the alliance to choose between limited retaliation or the unthinkable: full-scale war with Russia. The Suwałki Gap, a narrow strategic corridor between Poland and Lithuania, has become a potential flashpoint. If this land bridge were lost, the Baltic states could be cut off from the rest of NATO, challenging the alliance's credibility and ability to defend its members. Both sides have reinforced the region, with thousands of NATO troops and heavy equipment deployed to deter any aggression. The presence of multinational battle groups sends a powerful signal of unity and readiness. Constant military exercises, involving tanks, aircraft, and thousands of soldiers, send a clear message. The red line is real, and the alliance is prepared to defend it. Yet the danger lies not only in deliberate attack, but in miscalculation. A stray missile, a technical malfunction, or a reckless order could spark a crisis that spirals out of control. Even a mistaken belief that NATO's resolve will falter could tempt an adversary to test the alliance, risking escalation and catastrophe. A direct NATO-Russia clash would pit the world's largest nuclear powers against each other, raising the terrifying prospect of escalation beyond anyone's control. The stakes could not be higher. Diplomats and military leaders work tirelessly behind the scenes to keep communication channels open, to prevent misunderstandings, and to de-escalate tensions. But the safeguards are fragile, and the rhetoric on both sides is hardening as the crisis deepens. Article 5 is more than just a clause in a treaty. It's a psychological line in the sand, a promise that the alliance will stand together, no matter the cost. If that line is ever tested, the consequences would be global, not just regional. The world would be watching, and the response would shape the future of international security. In the end, the fate of the world could hinge on a single decision made in a moment of crisis, one that will echo through history. In the Western Pacific, the Taiwan Strait is a 100-mile-wide flashpoint between China and the self-governing island of Taiwan. This narrow stretch of water, just over 100 miles at its widest, has become one of the most dangerous places on Earth, a place where history, identity, and superpower rivalry collide. Beijing sees Taiwan as a breakaway province, vowing reunification, by force if necessary. For Taiwan's 23 million people, it's home and democracy. The island's vibrant society stands in stark contrast to the authoritarian rule across the strait, fueling a deep sense of identity and resistance to Beijing's claims. China's military pressure is relentless. Jets and ships encircle the island, rehearsing for invasion or blockade. These displays are not just for show. They are a constant reminder to Taiwan and the world of Beijing's growing military might and its willingness to use force. Taiwan's global significance is immense. It's the world's semiconductor hub, powering everything from smartphones to advanced weapons. The island's advanced chip industry is the backbone of modern technology, making it a critical link in global supply chains and a strategic prize for any power. A war here would shatter the global economy and upend the balance of power in Asia. Disruption to trade, technology, and finance would ripple across continents, affecting billions of lives and plunging markets into chaos. The US maintains strategic ambiguity, arming Taiwan but not formally promising to defend it, though recent statements suggest a shift. Washington's careful balancing act is designed to deter both a Chinese attack and a unilateral declaration of independence by Taiwan. An invasion would be a massive, brutal operation, likely drawing in the US, Japan, and other regional powers. The scale of conflict would be unlike anything seen in decades, with enormous risks for escalation and devastation. Allowing China to seize Taiwan would devastate US credibility. Intervening risks direct war between nuclear superpowers. The stakes are existential, not just for Taiwan, but for the entire international order. The red line, the first shot, the first PLA boot on a Taiwanese beach. After that, de-escalation becomes nearly impossible. The world would be watching, holding its breath, as events spiral beyond control. The decisions made in the opening hours would shape the century, toward peace or devastating great power war. The fate of millions and the future of the global order could hinge on what happens next in the Taiwan Strait. North Korea, the world's most isolated nuclear power, has spent decades perfecting its arsenal as a guarantee of regime survival. Its missiles can now reach South Korea, Japan, and potentially the US mainland. The red line, a nuclear-armed missile launch against another country, or even a credible move toward one. Such an act would trigger overwhelming retaliation, but the danger lies in miscalculation or desperation. Even a major nuclear test or a provocative missile launch over Japan could force the US and its allies to consider preemptive action. Seoul, a city of 25 million, lies within range of North Korea's artillery. Any conflict would be catastrophic from the outset. China, North Korea's uneasy ally, fears both a nuclear North and a regime collapse on its border. A US strike on North Korea could draw in China, escalating the crisis. The decision-making in Pyongyang is opaque and unpredictable. A single misstep could ignite a regional or even global war. The world has come close before. The threat remains real and ever-present. In the Middle East, a shadow war between Iran and Israel has erupted into open confrontation. What was once a covert struggle of sabotage, cyber attacks, and proxy battles has now spilled into the open, raising the stakes for the entire region. Iran's nuclear ambitions and its support for powerful proxies like Hezbollah and other armed groups threaten Israel's very existence. Tehran's influence stretches from Lebanon to Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, encircling Israel with hostile forces. Israel, feeling increasingly isolated and vulnerable, vows to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran at any cost, insisting that it cannot allow its most determined adversary to acquire weapons of mass destruction. Recent direct strikes, such as an Israeli attack on an Iranian consulate in Syria, have shattered long-standing rules of engagement and diplomatic norms. Iran's unprecedented missile barrage in retaliation marked a dangerous new phase, signaling that both sides are willing to escalate beyond previous limits. The ultimate red line remains Iran crossing the nuclear threshold, an event that could trigger a full-scale war. An Israeli preemptive strike on Iran's heavily fortified nuclear sites would risk massive retaliation, not just from Iran, but from its network of allies. Iran could unleash Hezbollah's vast arsenal of rockets and missiles from Lebanon, opening multiple fronts against Israel. The sheer volume of attacks could overwhelm Israeli defenses, causing devastation in Israeli cities and civilian casualties on a scale not seen in decades. Simultaneously, Iran's proxies across Iraq, Syria, and Yemen could target US and Israeli interests, opening new fronts and stretching defenses thin. They could also attempt to close the vital Strait of Hormuz, threatening to disrupt global oil supplies and sending shockwaves through the world economy. The US, Israel's closest ally, would face immense pressure to intervene militarily, risking a wider war that could draw in American forces across the region. Any direct US involvement would risk a direct and potentially catastrophic conflict with Iran, with unpredictable consequences. Meanwhile, Russia and China, both aligned with Iran to varying degrees, could turn the conflict into a dangerous proxy battleground for great power competition, further complicating any resolution. The logic of deterrence is eroding, as each side tests the other's red lines and the risk of miscalculation grows. In this volatile environment, a single misstep could trigger a catastrophic regional war with consequences that would ripple far beyond the Middle East, threatening global stability and security. The South China Sea is a vital artery for global trade, and a flashpoint where China's ambitions collide with its neighbors and the US. China claims almost the entire sea, building and militarizing artificial islands to enforce its control. These outposts bristle with runways, missiles, and radar, turning reefs into unsinkable fortresses. Daily confrontations, Chinese vessels harassing Filipino and Vietnamese ships, aggressive maneuvers against US patrols, raise the risk of a deadly incident. The red line, a collision, a ramming, or a shoot-down that causes casualties and triggers treaty obligations. The US is bound by treaty to defend the Philippines. A clash could force Washington into direct conflict with Beijing. A war here would paralyze global trade, shatter supply chains, and draw in regional allies like Japan and Australia. The crisis is slow motion but relentless. Each new island, each close encounter, brings the world closer to the brink. The space for de-escalation is shrinking. A single miscalculation could ignite a war between great powers. The threads holding our world together are stretched thin. These 5 red lines, NATO, Taiwan, North Korea, Iran, Israel, and the South China Sea, are the fault lines of our global order. Anyone could unleash a chain reaction with worldwide consequences. But these outcomes aren't inevitable. Understanding the risks is the first step to preventing disaster. Diplomacy, vigilance, and informed public pressure are our best defenses. The choices made in the world's capitals will determine whether we navigate this era peacefully or stumble into catastrophe. Peace is an active pursuit, demanding constant attention and resolve. For more analysis, subscribe, like, and comment. Which red line worries you most?